Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today, we are going to talk about the future of the Democratic Party and a discussion that is happening among Democratic strategists about whether or not a certain term is something that Democrats should portray themselves to be in order to win elections, or if in fact it is costing them elections. We're going to go over their discussion a little bit, and then we're going to break out some numbers. This is prompted because somebody asked how I felt about certain Democratic political strategists saying that the Democratic Party couldn't afford to be woke. Because if they were woke, well, it would just drive voters towards the Republican Party. Let's be real clear about what that means when you say woke. Okay? What you're really talking about is the desire of some people, large segments of the American population, to live with like basic dignity, to be accepted as part of the United States. That's what we're really talking about. This discussion isn't about whether or not the Democratic Party should be woke. It's a discussion about whether or not it is more politically expedient to kick those people under the bus. That's the discussion. You can church it up however you want to. But the discussion is whether or not it is better for those in power to not worry about those outliers, those groups on the outside, those people that have been othered. That's the discussion. I would ask, if you're going to do that, what good are you? If you're going to do that, if you're going to make the decision, hey, we can't fight for these people. If we do, we won't win the election. What makes you any different than the people who want to keep them othered, who are open about it at least? I mean, they're more honest. You know, the whole thing is, well, the Republicans will do this. If they win an election, they'll do this to these poor people. Right, but you don't want to make the case for them. You don't want to fight for them. You're just going to give up on them. I don't really see the difference. See, when political strategists talk, they pay attention to numbers. In 2020, you had 158 million people cast a vote in the national election. 158 million. Those are the people that Democratic strategists are looking at. It amounts to 66.1% of those eligible to vote. There are 240 million eligible voters in the United States. If you take that 66.1% and divide it in half between the parties, you will soon realize that that number is lower than the 33.9% who did not vote. Because either they feel their vote doesn't matter, that it won't count for anything, or they can't tell the difference between the two parties. If you don't believe those people exist, just look in the comments of any of these videos. It's a pretty widespread belief. And when stuff like this happens, I can't really blame them for holding it. When discussions like this are occurring, I can sympathize with their position. I'm a big fan of choosing fights that are big enough to matter and small enough to win. Yeah. Sometimes you can fight the fights you can win. And sometimes you have to fight the fights that need fighting. And when you are talking about the basic dignity of millions of Americans, I would suggest that's a fight that needs fighting. It's a fight that where you just don't have a choice. You have to make the case. And if you can't, perhaps somebody better can do it. Rather than focusing on this 66.1% and fighting and scrapping to try to get their votes, why not focus on that 33.9? A third of the country that is so alienated they don't even vote. Now, sure, some of them just didn't vote because they live in an incredibly red state and they don't think that their vote matters or whatever. But I'm willing to bet that's not all of them. I'm willing to bet there's a whole bunch of them who are like, I can't vote for either of these people out of good conscience because I know they're going to sell me out. And here you are proving them right. You're proving them correct. You either make the case for marginalized people, you make the case for reparations, you make the case for trans people, you make the case for any group that needs it, or get out of the way. If you want to cast yourself as the left-wing party in the United States, at least pretend on some level to be the slightest bit socially progressive, or I'm sorry, woke. This isn't a discussion that the Democratic Party needs to be having. It's not whether or not it should pursue socially progressive policies. The conversation that needs to be happening is how best to make the case. You're looking at Virginia and concerned about what happened there. Well, I mean, you could, instead of focusing on, well, they used this to get to us, so we're just going to drop this whole topic, you could fight back. I mean, I know that as of late, that doesn't seem to be a Democratic Party tradition, but it is something that could be done. You could go about, I want to make sure I got this right. You're so concerned about books in schools having influence over your kids? They get exposed to a book and it's going to change their whole moral fiber? Man, you must be a bad parent. You need Big Daddy government to teach your kids? I'm willing to bet that would work in the South. I'm fairly certain of it. Because at the heart, that is their argument. The argument is that you need to have the government raise your child because you can't impart your values to them. I'm willing to bet that could be overcome with the slightest bit of effort. The idea of just abandoning entire groups of people because it's too hard is why the Democratic Party has the reputation it has. It's why there's a whole bunch of people who are socially progressive who go out of their way to say that they're not Democrats. If you want to maintain power, which seems to be the ultimate goal there, you need to focus on the numbers that you can get to. If you want to keep fighting for the 66.1%, go right ahead. But I'm willing to bet it would be easier to get that 33.9. I'm willing to bet that group that has been written off by the Democratic Party has also been written off by the Republican Party. Nobody's making a case for them. Nobody's reaching out to them. All it takes are people who can inspire. People who can get out there and make the case. Yes, we need clean energy. And actually mean it. Not just do a lukewarm bit for the sake of votes when you don't really mean it because you're taking a lot of money from, fossil fuel industries. The term woke in and of itself is a problem. That was the label the Republicans slapped on it. You're for human rights. Anyway, it's just a thought. You have a good day.